Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Chris Flowers. I'm the executive producer of the Biz Coaches Show, and I have the one and only Eric T. Whitmoyer. He is the founder and CEO of My Biz Coaches. How you doing this morning, boss?
Doing good, Chris. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. We had to double book these two guys because one of them is great on their own, but two of them together just makes it that much more special. So we got Catherine and Tab Pierce. We had to have two business owners on it because we just wanted to just double up on the fun. So I'm going to read in Tab and Catherine real quick. Says Tab Pierce is the founder of Cybersecurity Partners, a company he launched in 2010 to redefine cybersecurity as a holistic risk management solution for executive leadership. With over 20 years experience in the information security industry, Tab has cultivated a vast network of experts across the United States. His career includes executive roles in prominent information security firms and the broader IT sector, and serving on an advisory board for multiple organizations. He also is co-founder of an early stage security AI company. Is it Linear? Lunar. Okay, excuse me.
Dude, I'm already bored with my bio.
Well, that shirt is boring.
That thing needs to be rewritten. I'm bored.
Hey, like you said, your shirt isn't boring. So like I said, it's keeping everybody interested. So beyond his work with cybersecurity, Tab is an accomplished author of 3 books, sharing insights through his books, Upsurge, Wreckage to Triumph, Rebuilding Your Personal and Business Life, Outlast Everything, and Decoding the Master Key System. He's also co-manager of Network Live, a professional community that fosters growth, calibration, and networking among seasoned business leaders and entrepreneurs. Through his ventures, Tab continues to empower organizations and individuals to thrive, business, and beyond. Okay, that's Tab. Here comes Catherine.
Good luck with that one being better than that, Catherine.
I know.
She's already one-upped you already because she's her. So if anything, you're playing catch up, especially with that shirt on. Catherine Pierce, like I said, this is gonna touch everybody in the fields right here. So you've already lost. After being a stay-at-home mom and a caregiver for her mother-in-law during the final 5 years of her life, Catherine decided to embark on a new career outside of her home. In 2018, she became a cybersecurity recruiter. Within a few months, she had an opportunity to acquire a company and become the CEO of 3 PNT Security Recruiting. She had no idea how to run a successful recruiting firm, but jumped in with both feet and learned it as she went along. She tripled the previous year's revenue within the first year of taking over. Many Fortune 500 and enterprise business considered her the cybersecurity recruiting leader. In 2021, she became co-owner and manager and director of Network Live, a professional development company. They help small business owners transform themselves and their business to achieve the extraordinary.
Well, I think the podcast is over now. Jeez.
It's a wrap. Drop the mic. It's already done.
That's right. We're out.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Follow that up, Eric.
All right. Well, let's get this thing
Good
going.
luck, Eric. This is going to be your worst freaking nightmare. I'm just saying.
No, he works with me all the time. I've already got that beat.
Yeah, but he hasn't been with Catherine for 37 years. It sucks. I'm sorry. Can you edit that out, or are we okay? Anyway.
Yeah.
No, we just go live.
All on the record.
I want to thank you both for joining us today. I'm excited about the opportunity to have you on the show and talk through some of the things that we can some things we've experienced together throughout your experience here in Phoenix and the owners of Network Live. I'd like to talk a little bit about the acquisition and more specifically the transition that you've gone through in Network Live in the last couple of years, because I've seen obviously some significant changes during that time. But let's start off, Tab, Catherine, in regards to the time you spent with Caliber, right? And obviously you still own it, but getting started in that space, what would you say? Was there anything that you took from that really helped you in the transition with Network Live?
Man, I probably should answer that, huh, Catherine?
Yes.
So I think probably the biggest thing was after all of the kind of that trials and tribulations that led us into acquiring the community, I really believe that the win for us, or that transition, was just the experience that we gained from growing up as business owners and business leaders. Mm-hmm. That kind of gave us that resilience to jump into something that was completely different and new to us, and frankly unique. And I think that was probably the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, so certainly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please, Catherine.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think so too. And even though I, excuse me, I was a stay-at-home mom when Tab started Caliber, knowing that things don't always go the way you plan them as a business, and all that also helped prepare us for, jumping in and learning a whole new business and getting to know the community and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got a pressing question I got to ask, and all jokes aside, as a partnership, right, but husband and wife working together in a business, what are some of the challenges? Or let me ask this better. What are the ways that you manage through those types of challenges? Because every business owner I've worked with, and it's now 69 in the last 5 years and 6 or 7 months, there's not one that we don't talk about to some degree or another, the trials and tribulations of being a business owner and having spouse, family, significant other, even children at times, depending on how old the children are, having them understand how challenging it can be to own and run a business. And sometimes if the spouse isn't directly involved in the business, getting them to understand how hard it is, the decisions you have to make, the things you have to do, how to prioritize your time, your resources, things like that. And I guess the question I would initially ask you is, how do you balance that between the two of you? Do you take certain responsibilities? You've got this, I've got that kind of thing, or do you kind of do everything together?
Well, we don't necessarily have it like outlined that, I'm going to do this, he's going to do that. But at the same time, he's way more on social media than I am. So he is the one that's usually posting and doing way more engagement than I, do. I do a lot of the behind the scenes as far as sending out the newsletter and making sure that people, the events are planned and posted and that kind of a thing too. But a lot of it has just been, what are you good at that I'm not, or, what do you excel at? And, Tab hates doing administrative stuff. And so, and that stuff doesn't bother me. I can just sit down and do it. But, and he's very much more strategic than I am when he's looking at the business as a whole and that kind of a thing. And then I am more like in the weeds, tactical, let's, get it done. So we really complement each other well. Nice. And we do frustrate each other. I mean, well, I mostly frustrate him. I'm on drugs, so I'm all good. Yes. But just because we operate differently, Tab is, like I said, he's very strategic and I can get stuck in the weeds. And so it's been really good for me to be able, and I'm still learning how to think more strategically and the broader vision instead of these are the things I need to do today. So what would you add to that, Tab?
Well, thank you, Catherine. I know, Eric, you said all joking aside, but I'm going to make a joke. So this will come as a shock to Chris because of my shirt. I end up being in the relationship often more like a traditional woman, and she becomes more like a traditional man, right? Where there's a lot of things where I just become like a freaking emotional prima donna at times, right? And so she has to talk me down, or so there's things like that a lot of people will look at Network Live and they'll we'll be at a conference or something, and they'll go thanks to Tab for whatever. And I'm like, dude, I'm just the loud, obnoxious face. Catherine she is like the one that keeps everything running and keeps everything going. And that's the big thing. And like, she's really the strength in the rock. She's the one that when we had all those issues with Caliber, she was the one that was like, we got to get through it. You got to focus, you got to do it. You just make it happen, fix it kind of thing. And we're in this together. And so there was a lot of that. I do want to address her frustrating me. So what happens, just to talk about that, is she is very tactical. And as she wants to expand into other areas, like a women's conference that we're in the process of acquiring, it's like, hey, you have to be front and center. You have to be on stage. You have to be the strategic one. So I'll try to help her think more broadly and more strategic. And she's like, I don't know. What about that? I don't know. You're killing me. So so I just want to add to.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And I mean, it's what's interesting about that is just the natural gravitation into the areas where you're most comfortable, right? And I think, again, as I say this, working with as many clients as I have, that's a very common challenge. I've identified, and I share with my clients, we call it the 6 core competencies. Mm. And those 6 core competencies need to be solved for any business to be successful, to whatever degree of success you want to. And of those 6 core competencies, we had things like, managing the finances. You have things like, the operational functions. You have the sales and marketing functions, right? And so, and any business owner inherently brings a few of those to the table. Mm-hmm. However, you don't inherently have all 6 of those skill sets. Nobody does. And if you're lucky, you have 2 or 3, but you still have to solve for the other 3 or 4, depending on how many you bring to the table. And in your particular case, in a partnership, and that's why a lot of partners work out well. When they work out well, it's because, I'm good at this, you're good at that. We collaborate together, and maybe we bring 4 or 5 of those key functions to the table, or competencies to the table. But it's a challenge, right? And it's knowing, and I think the other thing is accepting each other's comfort, allowing Catherine to do what she does where she does it, and Catherine tolerating Tab when he does it. Right? So, but in all seriousness,
it's like a 70-30 split there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it is absolutely, a major contributing factor to success in a business is identifying what you're good at and not trying to do everything. Because I see people struggle and fail all the time because they're trying to do everything. And sometimes we do it out of necessity because we're a small business and we don't have the additional resources, but there's always a better way. Sometimes it's just a matter of identifying what that is. So let me ask you this, Ian. I know a little bit about the story of the acquisition of Network Live. More specifically, what I'd kind of like to tie into is what was your motivation for the acquisition? What went into the logic of that? And again, I kind of know it, but I'd like to share it here with the group. And what was the vision coming out of that? Right, going in, what did it look like? What was the motivation? And then coming out of that, what's the vision? And what did you maybe learn in that first year or two? And I think that'd be interesting for people here.
Tab, why don't you take that? Well, because you're the one that Tab was really the one that initiated. Well, Gelly reached out to Tab, but Tab was really the one that was like, I think I want to do this and take this on. So that's why I said for Tab to.
But I do think you need to chime in, especially probably that first year part, Catherine. But there's a lot of interesting things. If people, we were talking to somebody, we've talked to a couple of people that have they've the way that they say it. There's not much reading between the lines, but they'll say things like, "So do you regret buying it yet?" I'm like, "Gosh, man, could you like?" And the reason why they do that is because they see it in a silo. They see like just it as their view or vision of it, and what they don't see, and which is the reason why we bought it, is there's like honestly no amount of money I don't know how we could have propelled ourselves into the position we're in without doing something like this, right? And that was the intent. The intent is that we had started, or I'd started a company called Refiners, which is a business, a peer-to-peer business community, and we had 25 members. It was during the pandemic. We had done a conference here in Phoenix. We were living in Seattle at the time, and we had 100 people on site, about 800 remote, and it was just unbelievably successful. So Gelly, the previous owner of what was Networking Phoenix, before we acquired it and changed the name, during that time, she had come to me and said, "Hey, I'm looking for an IT partner," and I said, "What does that mean, right? What do you mean?" And so she said, really what I want to do is I want to sell the company. And I was like, "Oh, that's different." And so in the process of like I think she had gone to you at the same as she had gone to me, like, "Can you help me find somebody?" And then she found a sucker in me. Not really, but I ultimately, after talking to several people and then going back and forth and kind of being the middleman, I got to Catherine and said, "I think I want to buy this." And the reason we originally were thinking, well, let's roll Networking Phoenix, or now Network Live, just in case people weren't paying attention, that we were going to roll that into Refiners, which in hindsight is laughable, rolling that big of a company into 25, a group of 25 people, right? So ultimately we kept it going the way that it is, or the way that it is now. And Refiners is just in the process of kind of coming back out of the ashes. We kind of mothballed it because everybody was remote because it was during the pandemic, and we just kind of needed to focus on Network Live. The vision behind it, probably, there's the vision, and then there's what happens, right? Obviously, two very different things, and this is probably the only business that we've ever acquired, or I've acquired, where I look at it and I'm like, I have to be okay with it, like morphing into something that I don't see. Like I have to be okay with it kind of being a lifeblood of its own. Where Caliber, I like can dictate that more. With this, because so many personalities and whatnot, we've had to allow it to grow. And so we, for a long time, we were like, okay, we make our money on Caliber, and we do really well with that. And we're not making it yet with Network Live. And that's still a process, right? That's still a growing process. And, but we were like, we're building momentum, and we're just building massive momentum. And like that is really started. I mean, it took off last year, but it really started taking off, and people really started noticing it over the summer when people were like saying, I love it. People will say, you don't want to do mixers during the summer. And the other thing they said is you don't want to do mixers on the west side because people on the west side don't go to mixers. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
The entire population of the West Valley.
But it was a common thing, right? We're like, okay, that makes no sense, right? So we do that. People show up, and then people are like, oh, it must have changed. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Because nobody out here ever goes to a mixer.
Yeah,
ever.
I'm like, that's like that might be you. If you're on the west side, Chris, that might explain all of it.
That's why nobody's coming out here. Oh, I get it now. Okay.
He's really far west. I mean, he's like Buckeye,
okay,
basically California, right?
I'm East LA. I'm East LA, so
So in the summer we ramped up instead of ramping down, where everybody else was ramping down, and we ended up with 125, 175, and 225 people at mixers in June, July, and August.
Those are phenomenal numbers. Yeah,
everybody's like, holy smokes! And then we're off to the races. And like in January, I think we'll have done almost 15 different events, and we're ramping up to. Wow. We've got plans for members to do what we call powered by Network Live, and we have one tonight. And we just help support it. but we get our name out there, and our members are producing the events. And so it's, our thing is like member driven, and really just like get massive leverage. And now we're able to really start to monetize that. And we do things differently, God bless the BNIs of the world, but we're not, that's not us,
Sure.
And so our whole focus is like people do business with those that they like, know, and trust, and show up and be liked, be known, and get trusted. And then people will do business with you. And it's proven out pretty well. Not surprising.
Yeah, no, impressive. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's a couple of things that I really would take out of that. Catherine, what else would you incorporate into that?
Oh, that's it. God, I forgot Catherine's here.
Yes. Well, when Tab decided that he wanted to buy Networking Phoenix at the time, I was like, yeah, let's do it together, and I did not like networking events at all. I think I had been to 2, and both were really bad experiences for me. And so he's like, well, this involves networking, and you're going to have to go to networking events and mixers and things like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm up for the challenge. I'll do it. And I always like to reflect on my first mixer that we were in, after we took over, and how I would have to take breaks every few minutes. Not that well, like 3 breaks during the whole 2 hours of just going to the bathroom and just like collecting myself, because I was so out of my comfort zone. And now I love them. I absolutely love them, and I look forward to them. And one of the things too that I would say to anybody that is either, because it's interesting to me how many people have moved here. I mean, we moved here 3 years ago, but all the time at our mixers, people are relocating here, or, maybe just starting a business and they're just trying to get out and network with professionals. And, when I notice somebody that's a little apprehensive that comes to one of our mixers, I'm like, all it is you're just making friends. All you're doing is just making friends. You don't have to worry about a 30-second commercial. There's nothing like that going on. This is just about finding a group of people that you can connect with. And it's been really fun, especially for like the college graduates that are just starting to get out networking and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, in fact, we had somebody reach out to, they reached out to me because I have my information on the newsletter, and they were like, I was going to come tonight with a friend, but she can't come. And I don't know if I really want to come by myself. And I said, you absolutely want to come by yourself. I'll be your friend, and I'm like, you should just hang out with me. I'll introduce you to everybody, and,
Poor woman didn't see that train coming.
And that's one of the things that I really try and pay attention at our mixers is there somebody standing alone? And if they are, I need to go up and introduce them to somebody or talk to them or whatever, because we don't want people to feel awkward. And it can be really intimidating entering into like a new group, even though we have new people coming all the time. Right. They don't know what we're about, and they don't know the vibe that we have and things like that. So that's really been fun for me to be able to really just kind of help people be at ease with it, because I know how that feels to have to walk in and start talking to strangers that you don't know, Right, so that has been really good for me.
That's a really interesting dynamic. In a sense, you basically grew up with the business, right? In a way, absolutely. Right? In the last couple of years of developing your own skill set, to the point where now you're willing to actually bring somebody in and take them by the hand and lead them through a room and introduce them to people. That's a lot of growth for yourself personally as well through that. So that's interesting. And then Tab, going back to your vision with the company, I loved what you said about allowing it to morph into what it's become, as opposed to try and, individually try and force it a certain direction. And I know you and I have had a number of conversations over the last couple of years about what your vision was initially, and then it's adjusted. And I think that often people get into a business that they think they know. I did this with a coffee shop. I had a partner of mine, came to me with the idea we're going to do a craft coffee shop. And I could tell you all the things that I envisioned we were going to do. And, coming from a sales background, managing, teams and things like that. And I'm like, okay, we're going to teach them how to do this, and we're going to teach them how to do that. And then, when I got to understand the craft coffee experience, I quickly identified craft coffee people do not want to be salespeople. They are not going to upsell them to sandwiches and danishes and all that other kind of stuff. They want to make craft coffee. They want to make it look really cool, and that's what they live for.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so some of my strategies were either I was going to have to get all new people, or we're going to have to rethink the logic behind it. And so we pivoted a little bit. We did things more like more community based. We'd have paintings displayed in the coffee shop when we have all the artists come and talk about their paintings, and that drew a ton of business for us. But it morphed, right? Like you said, Tab. It was not what I initially envisioned, and we had to allow it to evolve a little bit too. Yeah, I mean, structurally, right? Like we had our vision, and it kind of needed. But if I had tried to force what I was trying to force, it would have been a much more painful process. And I think that's an interesting takeaway, especially with an acquisition, because I know I've been on my share of acquisitions. And one of the biggest problems is you go in, first of all, and I tell clients all the time, remember when you buy a business, you're buying somebody else's problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right?
There was some of that. You know what I mean? There was like, that's not a hairball, man. I think that's a freaking marmot sitting over in the corner, man. It looks like it's got its eyeballs on me. I just thought it was a hairball. Yeah.
Exactly. And I tell people, I'm like, look, what you have to be able to do is look at what those problems are and identify that you're either capable of solving those problems, or you have a vision to pivot and adjust accordingly so that it doesn't undermine you. But that's that takes a lot of gumption, a lot of confidence, maybe some arrogance.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes into that as well.
And you can force, right? And that doesn't mean it's good. And as a case in point, I for a long time I was like, my security company and Network Live, the twos shall never twain, right? I mean, it's like, you got people in Network Live that are just like, they're extroverts like me. Then you got a bunch of security people that are introverts like Catherine. And
I don't know why he calls me an introvert, but go anyway.
I'll digress for a second. The reason why she doesn't have any girlfriends is because she hangs up the phone when they're done talking. She's like, "Oh, all they want to do is talk on the phone all day." It's like that was only 2 minutes, Catherine. But what we did is for a long time I was like, if we do a InfoSec happy hour. We'll put it under the Network Live brand, but it's gonna be our first like foray into a industry specific mixer. And so what happened is we do it. We had our next one tomorrow night, but we did it, and it's like pulling teeth, but we got about 20 people out to it, and
the first one, yeah.
And and it took us 2 months to get 20. So and there was a lot of differences, but we heard from people like, "Hey, what's this Network Live?" And then one guy joined the community, and he's like all in, and other people are like showing up, and even to the point there's a security group called OWASP, and OWASP is it's a really tech nerdy security group that's been around for a long time. And they had 5 to 10 people or so at our holiday mixer, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the OWASP group said go to Network Live, they're our annual holiday mixer." So
nice.
Yes. And to even to add the exclamation point, now half of Caliber's pipeline is directly related to Network Live after 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you got to be careful forcing something because you believe it's the right thing, or you have perception of what it is, because you can force it. But as soon as you start to let that cat out of the bag, it's going to do what it's going to do. And you have to be okay with it. And I'm fine with the fact that it took us, 2.5 years to figure that out, but it shouldn't have taken us that long. I mean, where would we have been had we opened that up?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that because, like I said, I really think that there's something unique in that to take away from that, because I think that any one of us, when as a business owner, we kind of look at it and we like, I know what's best for my business, and sometimes I think if we were just a little bit more open and a little bit more objective and take some feedback, and ironically, I say that, and I remember a conversation you and I had. You had a meeting of some people that were part of the original organization. Yeah, and you had just shortly taken over, and I think you invited like a dozen or 15 of us or something like that, and you were just looking for feedback on what they liked about the previous organization and what they were looking for from the new organization, and you took that and you said, "Yep, there was a lot of really great feedback. It was helpful, and we probably won't do any of it."
Yeah. And there was one member who didn't say anything, and then he walked up at the end of it. That was at the pizza, right? And he was he walked up to me at the end of it and he goes, "Just do what you're going to do, and people will show up or they're not." And I was like, "Well, we could have just like bought you steak, and it would have been a lot cheaper and a lot quicker." It pretty much sums it up.
And that was probably the most
especially afterward, right? Had he said that at the beginning, I would have been like, "No, we can't do that." But at the end, I was like, "Yeah, you're right."
Yeah, that's a great point. So let me ask you this: through those challenges, I know we referenced some of the challenges that you there was the technology piece that you really struggled through. I remember that was brutal.
Yes.
What were some of the other? And obviously there was a dynamic difference between the personality, the previous personality, Gelly specifically, and then what the style and personality you guys brought to the table. And even then, I think you're finding more of what that was. I think in the beginning, you were still trying to figure out what you were going to emulate when you're on stage, when you're in front of people, whatever. That's probably evolved quite a bit in the last couple of 2.5 years. But what are some of the other challenges that you guys have muscled through that you would really say, wish I'd had some insight on that, or I've learned and grown a lot through that?
I would say asking for help, getting help. And this is for, both for Caliber and for Network Live is, we don't have to do everything ourselves, and we don't have to know how to do everything ourselves, because we know people that know how to do it. And a lot of times, especially in an organization like Network Live, people are willing to volunteer. They're willing to help and willing to be there and really help. They want to build the community. And so accepting that help is another thing that we've had to learn, because at first we were like, we didn't really know what we didn't know in the business and what it was. Because I think, and I said this at the beginning, what we bought in Networking Phoenix was it was different than what I thought we were buying. And it's not anybody's fault, and it's not bad or good. It was just different. And so when we came in and we were, kind of morphing it, because, Gelly was a single mom and full of energy. She's in her, she was in her 40s, I think. But, and then Tab and I come along and we're in our 50s, and so that is a different vibe. It just is, and, right. And so, learning that we didn't have to be like Gelly. And we had a ton of people saying, well, Gelly wouldn't do it this way, or Gelly didn't do it this way. And we just would roll with it and just, say, well, we're doing it this way now. This is the vision for how we're going. And yes, people have, phased out and are not part of our community anymore. And we've had people, new people join. And so it's really been, especially now that we're, almost 3 years into it, it's been really cool to see it kind of evolve and morph. But in the beginning days, there was a lot of ugly cry days just because of, the technology.
And Catherine consoling me.
I know, right?
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, one of the benefits, though, of working together is it's a very rare time, and it's the same with our parenting. There was a very, very few times in our parenting with our kids that we were both down and upset at the same time. Usually one of us up, one down, and we can encourage each other. And so we've done the same with our businesses, and And, you had mentioned at the beginning of the show how, especially if the spouse is not involved in the business, that it can be very hard for them to not be supportive, but just not get it,
Right.
And until I went into my career outside the home, I did not get it at all. I'm like, why do you have to work, all these hours? And because in our minds, at least I was raised, your job is a 9-to-5 thing. I wasn't raised by entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so that was something, that, and Tab, I remember even remarking about it. It's like, you finally get it. You know what I mean? Because we were both in the same thing. I'm trying to grow the recruiting business. He's doing his stuff with Caliber and growing that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
So it was a really good, it's been a great experience in helping us to grow closer. Some people, it would drive their marriage apart and they would, it wouldn't work. And I've had people tell me that, but we genuinely love being around each other and we have a lot of fun together. So that, be quiet, Tab. We do, dang it. Anyway. And so it's been really good, and this idea of having to pivot is huge, because no matter what business you're in, there are times when you're going to have to pivot. If something's not working, you have to pivot, because it's so stupid to do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result.
So to add a little bit of the whether you want to call it a technical challenge or a challenge or whatever, one of the big ones is that the type of people that we inherited were very transactional, and a lot of it had to do with just the way the program was set up, right? And I mean, it was.
Well, I think most networking groups are set up that way.
Yeah, and we really wanted. We're in a constant state of trying to elevate the type of people that we have, and we hear people all the time like, oh, you got great people, and the people are getting better all the time. And like last night at our member mixer, there was a guy that was a fairly high level CFO that was like there, and he was like, man, this is a small group, but these are actually really good people. And he was kind of surprised, and that was a really difficult transition for me, because I have been used to being not in corporate America, but selling to enterprise level clients. And now all of a sudden we've got a bunch of people that are card slingers. They're at an event, they're slinging cards, and we're basically wanted them to go away. We were like, stop, and we would say, and I would make jokes like, if you give me a card, I'm going to assume I have something in my teeth that I have, like you're handing it to me like a toothpick, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use it to pick my teeth. And we would like really focus on, don't come here don't come here looking to like score today. You're scoring a lifetime relationship. You're scoring something bigger. And it was, dude, man, I tell you, it was hard on me. Like we had one member one time that, and this is where having Catherine and me, where Catherine is, like every once in a while, someone will say something like, that they don't like Catherine or whatever. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm like if they don't like me, I get it. I totally get it. Right? But with her, I'm like, I don't get it. And like, there was one guy that he sent us an email. I respond. I just hit reply. That's it. Right. And he comes back and he's like, I don't know how many times I have to tell you, I don't use this email anymore. And he goes, if you can't figure this out, I don't want to be a member. Here's my email address and here's my password. And I go to and I'm a security guy, right? And I go to Catherine, I'm like, do you want to handle this? Or I'm about to flame his ass. I'm like, I'm going to set his password up to 2-factor authentication. And every freaking time he goes in to try to do a reset, that sucker is going to freaking ping me. And I'm going to be like, who's my bitch? And I'm just like, so she's like, I got it. And I'm like, thanks, babe. I appreciate it. I've had to learn. Like I can't do stuff like that. But it helps having the right people.
Your restraint is remarkable. That's all I gotta say.
The best part is that's not the first time I heard that story. That's the second time. You laughed this part the first time.
And the thing is like I there's a reason why I was never in corporate. I had a corporate job for 2 months, and I was part of a layoff of one person. I got a 3-month severance package because they flew me out to Baltimore, and they were like, well, and I was an executive, and they were like, well, what do you think to me? And I was like, I think you guys need to get your shit in one sock because this meeting sucks. And then they let me go. I don't know. So
I don't know why. Yeah.
See, Chris, that's exactly what you got going for you.
I'm about to say, I say that all the time. It's like, don't ask me if you don't want to hear the answer. Don't ask me a question, dude.
I mean, it's like, and the thing is like, it's not that we're wrong. Like, it's that
it's all in the delivery.
I've been told it's how we deliver the message.
Yes.
I've heard that time and time. It's like, I think,
dude, Chris, I got to get you in shirts like this, man. We'll be broing it up, man. We'll be shirt brothers.
Hey, man.
Shirt brothers.
I think I can see this happening. I can see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in a safe place here.
There's a bromance brewing here. I can feel it.
I believe so. I think you're right, my brother.
I appreciate that. You know what?
Come on, Eric, get control of this.
Come on, Eric.
I'll try and keep my composure here. I love that story, by the way. That's so awesome.
That's so awesome.
I can think of so many owners who've had businesses where they were dealing with clients like that, and they're just like, I don't know how to deal with this. And I'm like, I can tell you what I would do.
Oh, I can tell you. I'll just say now I can tell you what Tab would do.
That's right.
Tab would go to his wife and say, do you want to handle this or do you want me to handle it?
Well, I appreciate that. That's great insight. I've got a couple other questions I want to make sure I hit on. Tab, there's a story. I thought I knew your story. And a couple weeks ago, you had a Monday call, I think it was, or something. And it was a Monday night coaching session or something. Don't remember which one it was. But my point was you went through your Caliber story and the challenges that you went through. And I knew there was a lot of money on the line. I knew it had something to do with the if I remember correctly, the first time I ever heard it was something along the lines of IRS taxes, like outstanding payroll.
Yeah, that was about 25% of it.
Yeah, but it was a lot bigger than I had understood it to be. I knew it was $1 million. I thought it was up, but there was something else to that. You shared some things in there that really told me a lot about your character, and I wasn't surprised by it. But I think it's really important for other business owners to hear, because our target audience is business owners. And I think there was a few things that went into that really spoke to your character. Yeah, you made the joke about, if I could have, I probably would have filed for bankruptcy, but the IRS money, that doesn't go away. That wouldn't do me. But that wasn't what impressed me. What impressed me was the gentleman that went through cancer. And you kept him on payroll and continued to support him during that. That told me more than I needed to know about you as an individual than anything else you could have possibly told me about your endeavors as a business owner. And I think it's important for other people to hear a little bit about that. So if you wouldn't mind just elaborating just briefly on that, because I think there's a lot that goes into that. And I know there's a lot of dynamics that played in and out of that.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thank you. The other thing is like that, I'm all about the truth, right? I mean, there's too much fluff that goes on out there in the world, and that fluff doesn't really serve everybody. It's like the truth. And so the first part about the bankruptcy, if it wasn't $250,000 that I owed to the IRS, I would have filed bankruptcy. And people, because people will say, oh, I think it's so great that you didn't file bankruptcy. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. My intention was to file bankruptcy. Don't make me out to be a saint. But what happened is, in the process of paying that off, I found out that I was actually really good at business and debt recovery. I learned like how you go about doing it, the mental side of it, and like how to handle things. And that's one thing I would say to anybody watching it. If anybody ever feels defeated because of a massive amount of debt, get a hold of me, because No, there's some things where it's like,
We have paved the way.
Like I tell people, like, hey, if you're stupid enough to loan me money or not collect quick enough, you made me the bank, right? And now if you want your money back, you're going to have to play by my rules, and my rules suck because obviously I'm not good enough to pay it back, but here we are.
Right.
And so we paid everything back, right? We paid it all back, but not like anybody wanted us to. Okay?
Right.
But we paid everybody back, and we didn't file bankruptcy, which to me is better than that. So the other part was I had a guy. I mean, it was like the perfect storm of suck of everything.
I got to add to this too, because it wasn't just the guy; it was also the fact that the big client that you had pulled out and said, "Hey, hang on." We have more business for you, and you waited and you waited and you tried to do the right thing, and that's really what put you in the bind.
Yeah. And I won't dive too far into it, but what happened was we had a client we had 8 contractors there. The contract ended. They said, "Hold up, we're going to get another contract, so don't let them go." And 8 people 1 week is painful. 8 people 6 weeks hurts. And so what you start doing is you're like, well, where can we find money? Well, we just, you don't go out and say, we just won't pay the IRS, but that's an option, right? And right. And then we're like, hey, we need more money. So let's do something really smart, like go to a hard money lender. And in hindsight, it sounds really stupid, but when you're in the thick of it and you're trying to find money and your client, and it was a very lucrative client where the contract would have more than made up for all of that. You're like, okay. And then we reached about 7 weeks, and I was like, man, we got to pull the plug. And about the 8th week, they came to us, and our client, and said, hey, I'm getting transferred internally, so no contract. And so now we've paid people that we can't afford to pay. We've got a hard money loan. We've got all of this stuff. And by the time it shook out, it was about $1 million. But in the process, when things are ugly, more ugly seems to find you. And we had a business unit that wasn't doing what it should have done. There's 4 people in it. That was a money suck. And one of those 4 was the guy that had cancer, and we opted to keep him on. And he was making about $120,000 a year, so it was not cheap. And this is in the midst of us trying to pay everything off, like this debt that we kept him on. And this is the part, I did that for obviously the right reason. Right. But what the interesting, I think to me, the interesting part is that, I had gone, I met with him, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago. And right before Christmas, and he's tearing up, and he's like, man, I want to thank you. And, he's just, and I said, hey, whoa, I'm like, hey, here's the deal, man. I'm like, if I had to do it over again, I'd have to fire you. because that almost killed the company. Like that's one of the things that I learned. And I said, but what I really learned was that if we have long-term and short-term disability, we're good.
Right.
And so I said, if it would have happened again, and it did, we had another individual that contracted cancer, and he was like, I don't know how long I'm going to be out. And we're like, okay, we got you covered, because we had that. And he passed away about 2 weeks after he found out he had cancer. But
wow.
It was fast.
We were able to help, right? Where could you imagine us saying, God, sucks, man. Whew. Too bad we didn't learn the lesson the first time. But one thing we did learn is you're fired, right? And I mean, that's so, it's really difficult to sustain something like that. And we paid him, and we didn't get paid, right? And so we made sure he was okay, but we weren't. So and so I don't regret any of that. I just am saying, like, I don't know that we could do that again.
Yeah, no, and I think that's I appreciate you sharing that story, because I know it, in retrospect, and you and I have had some similar experiences in different venues, right? I had a situation where I shut down a business that cost me $258,734.63. And I paid every penny of it back over the next 3.5, 4 years through my W-2 job that I had. Mm-hmm. So business went under, I shut it down. It cost me $250,000. I paid it all back. The kicker is I paid it all back. I feel like I learned my lesson and everything like that. Fast forward a couple of years later, quite a few years later, about 10 years later, and I'm doing the trucking business, and I had similar scenario, had some situations that didn't play out the way I'd intended for it, right? And you never, to your point, you never go into it thinking, oh yeah, I'm just going to take this type of loan, and it's like, in retrospect, it's easy to look back and say, oh, that was a really dumb idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Eric, what were you thinking? Right. But in the moment, to your point, emotionally, you're attached. I got to do everything I can to try and save this situation. I'm going to do what I got to do. And nobody, goes back to that point that I made about a spouse not being in the business. Nobody can appreciate that, what the business owner's going through, unless you're in their shoes. And that's the hardest thing, I think, that a lot of people can, whether you're the business owner trying to explain yourself or you're somebody else looking in trying to give advice, unless you've been in their shoes, you can't relate to them and understand what they're going through.
Yeah, and a couple things to add to that. One, it was Naveen Jain that told me to not label finding out I was $1 million in debt as the worst day of my life, because I had done that. And he's like, because what you're doing is you're taking away the possibilities that it was actually a great experience. And weirdly, it was probably one of the best experiences of my life, except while it was going on, right? I mean, in hindsight, I'm like, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be in Arizona. We wouldn't have lived on a farm. We wouldn't have moved. I mean, we wouldn't have raised animals because we were doing crazy stuff. We wouldn't have, because we lost our house and all of that. And we wouldn't have come to Network Live. I wouldn't have written 3 books. I mean, all of this, right? And the other thing is, I was a fake and a fraud and a failure was my mindset when I was $1 million in debt. Now I could be $1 million in debt, and I'm like, I bet I can get this thing up to 10. And what I mean is, it's not as big of a deal as as we get
your
older,
identity isn't tied to it.
And, well, not only that, we become stronger. I mean, when we were, Catherine, you remember when we were in our 20s, and I thought I was everything, and I was 30, and we were $30,000 in debt, and I'm lying on the bed in the fetal position, not thinking I want to kill myself, but going, hey, someday I'm going to be dead, and this isn't going to matter. I'm not going to kill myself, but God, when you're ready, man, I'm ready. But $30,000, and so then I go to $1 million, and what I realized is the human part of us is we're just resilient, and if we allow ourselves to get stronger and better, we just get stronger and better. And even this. Chris had mentioned, just in the start of it, Lunar, that we're starting, like what we're doing there and what we're about to do. There's no way in the world I could have done that, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because I didn't have the mindset that I have now to do something like that. And, so we have to look at these trials and tribulations and freaking crap fest that comes up as the things that define and refine us. And instead of because I never once went oh man, what are the amazing things that are going to happen from this? I go all negative, right? But the truth is once everything was cleared up, it was all amazing. But that was never the direction I went, because it's just as stupid to go I'm $1 million in debt. Best day ever. I mean, it's of course not, man. But it was, and I say this with the asterisks of short of getting married and having kids. It was probably the greatest day of my life to find out I'm $1 million in debt. And I just didn't know it. And it's weird to say, but here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's a great story. And I think that it's a testament to being a business owner and the trials and tribulations that go through And sometimes, I mean, there's the going joke, and I can't remember, but it's the graph of what an entrepreneur looks like, their thing is going to look like, and it's a straight line from the bottom left to the top right, and then it has in the next caption, it's got what it really looks like, and it's a squiggly line, all kinds of, right? That can't be more accurate, because sometimes your story takes so many different twists and turns, and you can't identify exactly what the turning point was sometimes. I mean, if you go back and you reflect, but in the moment, you don't know what that moment looks like, to your point, right? Hey, and that's the key.
So one of the funniest things, I don't know if you know who Cameron Harold is. He was the 1-800 junk guy, and that he was a number 2 guy, and he's just phenomenal, right? But I was at a conference one time, and he said, everybody in here is entrepreneur, right? Everybody's a business owner. Everybody stand up. And then he read off 10 traits of an entrepreneur. He goes, these are 10 traits of an entrepreneur. As soon as you've hit 8 of these, I want you to sit down. And of course, as soon as 8 hit, and by the time he was done, there was I don't know, 300 or 400 people there. By the time he was done, there was 6 people not standing. And he goes, congratulations, you're all bipolar. It was the 10 traits of bipolar.
Wow.
And it was like, he's like, congratulations, you're bipolar. And we were like, oh, wow. So,
You say we were like, oh, wow, were you one of the ones standing?
Oh, I was one sitting. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know how you can be a business owner and not ride the ebbs and flows of, and I don't know. I mean, I even believe guys like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have to ride those ebbs and flows. It's just at a level that none of us can even fathom because we're not there. But they have to. They're like, oh my gosh, I just lost $1 billion. I mean, I don't know, maybe. Oh, there it is, 2 billion are back.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think back when I was a kid, and of course, whatever anybody thinks of Trump today, that when I think back when I grew up in New York and Pennsylvania, and he was present all the time in the news, right? At that time in the 80s and the 90s, right? Oh, and I remember hearing that.
Unlike today.
Even worse today. But in the Trump, when he shut it down, and it was $900 million loss or whatever it was, right? And it's like he's going on about how he was so much in debt, and I'm like, but that's not, that doesn't define who I am, and that attitude of people, I'm going to figure out a way out of this, and to your point, in the moment, you may be in that fetal position, you may be crying in your pillow. But the truth of the matter is, what defines you is what you do after that.
Yeah, and one of our kids who was looking for work, and he was like, Dad, I have maybe enough money to last for two months. I said, dude, I've been living that freaking roller coaster for 35 years, man. I'm a sales guy. I've spent my entire freaking life looking for a job, right? And I'm like, it is what it is, and that's what it's like being a business owner. You're constantly looking for work.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. Right. When's the next deal? Where's the next opportunity coming from? Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the time today. Let me ask you guys, what if there's any parting things that you would want to share with a bunch of business owners that are out there that are hearing your message? We talked a little bit about your journey, talked about your story, your background. What are some of the things that you've, maybe 1 or 2 key things that you would say, this is what I think every business owner should really know and take with them?
I'll go first.
Okay.
To delegate as much as you can. Having, doing Network Live and having to learn to post the events, and we're acquiring this other conference, and I can figure out how to build a website. I do not need to spend my time building a website. We can go to Fiverr and have somebody else do it, and especially when resources are tight, it's hard to justify doing that. But you need to think about where your strong suit is, and where are you going to be most effective in your business? Is it me spending 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out automations, or is it better to oh my gosh or is it better to hire somebody and say, take care of this for me so that I don't have to have the frustration and I can still manage my business and do the things that I need to? So I would say delegation. And if you don't have the resources, find somebody that'll trade with you. Somehow you can work it out. You don't have to actually exchange money. And the other thing is always be ready to pivot. Just always be open to new opportunities and new ways to collaborate. That's something we didn't talk about today, but finding collaboration partners and making it a win-win for both of you, and you're exposing each other to new audiences, and the audiences are, so it's a win-win for everybody when you can, instead of thinking everybody's your competition, think of them as collaboration partners.
Yeah.
So what I heard is she's ready to pivot and I'm out the door.
Well, when she said automations, I saw Chris frown and twitch because he's got PTSD from trying to build out his automations for his channel.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, I feel that.
I'm working through it, man. I'm working through it.
Yeah, we outsourced it, man. Like
Yes.
so the thing I would leave people with, it may be a couple different things. One is just be prepared to listen. Don't be so married to what it is you do. I mean, Catherine talks about pivoting. I will talk to people. I'm like, hey, you're a financial planner, and that's what you're focused on. But are you listening to other opportunities that somebody is saying? Are you aware enough of what's going on? So if somebody says something, you can hear it, as opposed to just be focusing on finding your next deal. What is it you can maybe do that you're not doing right now if you bother to listen? And with that, they find. The older you get and the further along you get, the more difficult it becomes to find good quality mentors, right? I mean, it becomes a very big challenge. And so you have to find those people. And so Naveen Jain that I mentioned, the guy's worth 11 billion. He runs, Biome, which measures the microbiome of your gut, and has another company called Moon Express that is the only company in the US authorized to land on the moon and mine for resources. Weird, crazy stuff. And when I first met him, I asked him a question. He's like, did you read my book? I was like, no. And he goes, go read the book and then come back and ask me questions, because a lot of what you're going to find out is in there. And so I did. And the hardest thing I had getting my head around, he said he asked himself 4 questions. And that is, why me? Why this? Why now? And can it impact 1 billion people? And I said, wow. For a long time, I was like, I can get the first 3. The first 3 I get. The last one, I can't get. And his whole thing was, it's easier to start a moonshot business than it is to start a small business, because if it's big enough, the right people will find you. And it wasn't until we started discussing what we're doing at Lunar that I went, oh man, those are we're actually hitting the 4 points. I mean, what we're doing is going to impact 1 billion people. Probably it could impact everybody. It's that big. But then what I realized was, hey, once you get over that hump, because sometimes we get that mental block, and that mental block becomes everything. And as soon as we get over that hump, then we can go until we hit that other hump, and then we have to wait and get over that. But we have to be committed to if we're going to do anything, don't do it for money, do it for greatness, do it to leave a massive impact. And just one more point on that, when my business partner and I for Lunar started off, I was like, dude, I bet we could get this and we could sell it for 10 or 20 million dollars, whatever it was. And then once we realized the impact of what we were talking about, we're talking about like a very small market share, and we're talking about billions of market value of the business. Now all of a sudden we're no longer talking about what we can get from it, because what we can get from it no longer matters. And so I guess my point to business owners is like, don't be so married to the small, or don't be so married to what you're doing that you take away the opportunity to do something massive. Because massive, and I'll just say, I'll leave it with this. We're one guy that's a member of our community, lives in Texas now, and he got Naveen Jain's vision quickly. He owns a polyurethane company, and he was like, he's like, oh, I was going to start my own polyurethane company. I was going to do this, but now listening to Naveen, I'm going to do this. And I went, I didn't say it, but I was kind of like, cool story, bro. Anyway, and then I come back and I'm like, hey, you did it, and and he's like, 2025 will be our first year of full year. And he goes, but 2024, I think they did 75 million in their first year, not their first full year, first year. And he goes, this year will be well over $250 million. And so it's, how big do you go? And people will say, oh, he's the one, right? And I'm like, dude, if you knew the dude, you'd be like, the dude's not that special. The dude is not that special. And which is actually like give everybody hope, right? Like an average person can do amazing things.
Yeah, it's a great point. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's a huge takeaway. I'll say this: when I was at your event 2 years ago, where you had Naveen speak, those 4 points, I wrote those 4 points down. That was a major contributor for me in pivoting my biz coaches.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, re-identifying what that looks like for me long term.
And we had a person the other day tell us, like, speakers don't impact. We think that they impact, and I'm like, you have the wrong speakers at your events.
Yeah.
If you get the right people, and they're not like motivating, but they're actually delivering, man, they can like Naveen, like that dude is like life-changing.
Right. Yeah, this has been awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Catherine, Tad, thank you so much. It's been amazing being able to go deep in this conversation. Some great insights and some huge takeaways. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you very much for joining the show today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.